Thank you. Thank you. I'm not familiar with that one. Very pretty song. Always delighted to have Kathy and Rod with us on Sunday mornings as part of our beautiful music that we get to experience each and every week. So we are continuing with our August series called My Summer Vacation, and looking at the spiritual practice of self-care. And it is so vitally important to our overall health and well-being, not only our bodies and our physical aspect, but also mentally, emotionally, spiritually. It's just very important to us to take that time to replenish ourselves, to rest, to relax, to refresh. And many of us this summer have taken vacations, staycations. We've stayed at home in our own homes and just experienced our own backyards with friends and family, maybe some of our resorts here in the Scottsdale area. Some of you have had a lot of windshield time where you've driven coast to coast and done some fun things. I know there's been camping trips and excursions. I just got back from Virginia a couple of weeks ago, and I think Reverend Glenn went to the Sequoia National Park, and lots of fun things going on. So we're taking a little pause this month to celebrate summer, to celebrate our vacations and our time away, and to share those pictures and stories. So the invitation is out to each of you to send me a couple of photos from your summer adventures and show us what you've been up to. And I would ask that you give me your full name, the date of your trip, and the location that you went to. And send us a couple of photos and we'll incorporate them in. Last week you saw my family in the lake and go jump in the lake and the storms and things that we had. We also saw from Penny and Phil their trips to Oregon. And today we are going to see where the Frisbees have been up to. Lori and Tom were in Puerto Penasco, Rocky Point, Mexico back in May with family and friends. And then we have Tom, and we see Tom and his family, his parents, in New York. And then they were off to Steamboat Springs, Colorado, celebrating Tom's recent birthday. So having lots of fun with the Frisbees. And then we have Renee Perdue, who was celebrating the 4th of July in Puerto Penasco, Rocky Point, Mexico. A couple of photos of the fireworks that she was able to experience from her balcony there. And I've been there myself over the 4th of July, and it's always interesting to think I'm in a foreign country celebrating the independence of America. But don't we celebrate Cinco de Mayo? So it's all okay, right? We're all one. It's all okay. And then I also have a couple of photos from Reverend Glenn and his recent trip to the Sequoia National Park to see those huge and massive, fabulous redwoods. Isn't that awesome? Yeah. And then they really are red. Who knew? Who knew? So thank you all for sharing that little piece of your life and your time, and I look forward to receiving more. I received some that came in a little too late to get in this week's service, but we'll incorporate them next week and always open to a few more shots. So my talk today is self-care and healthy boundaries. And love sometimes has to say no. And when I thought of that title, the first thing that I envisioned in my mind was a small child and how much we love them, and we have to tell them no because we're teaching them, right? We're showing them not to get hurt, or we're teaching them sort of how life works, but we sometimes have to tell them no. And as I've been preparing this talk all week, I've really been in conflict a little bit with the idea of setting boundaries or breaking through boundaries. Because we're kind of no-limit spiritual beings around here, aren't we? And we're talking about empowerment and success principles and things like that. So to think about a boundary as a limitation is really not what we teach. So as I continue to think about it, really what I'm talking about is the idea of honoring ourself, honoring our own values, honoring the places within us where we say, that's not for me, this is. Honoring our choices. So it's almost like it's not a limitation that we're setting on ourselves in any way, but it is a way of establishing that boundary or that place within us that says, yes, this is for me, or no, that's not for me. That's not for me. So I've been traveling, as you know, and I just want to poke a little fun at the airlines. Anybody been on a plane lately? Next slide.
I want the joke now.
I want the joke now. That wasn't a good setup, Joe? Joe's our comedian. I didn't set that up well. But they are charging for everything, aren't they? Yes, it's like, yeah, there you go. $10 fee, you get your oxygen mask. Right. It does feel like they're charging for everything. But I want to talk about that idea. If you've been on a plane, you've heard that FAA talk, right? Seat belts, exits, all this kind of stuff. But they have the one that says, in the event that cabin pressure should decrease, oxygen masks will drop from above. Put yours on first before helping someone else. And as I listened to that announcement on my recent flight and I was preparing for the talks, I thought, wow, the FAA is telling us about setting a healthy boundary there. Telling us that we instructing us to take care of ourselves first by placing our own mask on before we attempt to help someone else. Now, subtly, they're saying, if you don't do that, you're going to pass out and you're going to become a problem for us to have to take care of. So take care of yourself first, and then you can help us help other people. Then you can help us help other people. So it's a wonderful analogy for what we're talking about, that we have to take care of ourselves so that we have the capacity that we'll be able to assist others. Have you ever considered yourself or know someone that maybe you consider to be a yes person? Someone that just says yes to everything, that is always willing to take on a project, always taking on maybe too much, and maybe can't get it all done, that just really is overextending themselves and their capacity. You know anybody like that? Growing up, I had a lady that was almost like a surrogate mother to me that was that way. And I watched her throughout not only my childhood, but even up until her passing, that's what she did. She was always so involved in everything in the community and everything, anybody that she could help, even her ex-husband's parents. She went and lived with them to take care of them in later life and so forth. She was always just such a big-hearted giver. But she always had these times of what we call crash and burn, where she had overgiven so much that she just couldn't get off the couch. She just couldn't get off the couch. And then it took her body time to recuperate and recharge, and then she would be able to go again. So there was not any of that balance like we were talking about last week in her life. She was just overgiving. Do you have the disease to please? This is a Karen Drucker song, right? The line in her song, the disease to please, where we think that the only way people are ever going to like us is if we do what they ask us to do for them, that we're going to please them. Anybody suffer from that? Don't raise your hands. Anybody suffer from that? Sorry. No, do not have to admit that. But where is the line between, we're all service, right? We all want to serve, we all want to give, we all want to help. We all want to be that beneficial presence in the world, but where is that line between being a beneficial presence, a servant leader in the world, and giving ourselves away? Where's that line? Well, I think it's wherever you say it is. Because we are all individualized and unique expressions of the one, and I might look at something that you're doing and go, whew, wow, that's way over the top. And you might look at something that I'm doing and saying, she didn't do anything, right? And those are just judgments, right? Based on our own experiences of life. It doesn't make it right, it doesn't make it wrong. It's done unto us as we believe. So we each get to choose where that line or that boundary is for us between being a beneficial presence and giving ourselves away so completely that we're depleted, that we're empty, that we have no capacity. Some of us have very firm boundaries, very solid, rigid lines in our lives. It may be around work. It may be around family. If it's not relative to that, we're not doing it. We're not going to say yes to it. And I think about sports, particularly in light of the Olympics right now. Everybody watching the Olympics and some of the activities that are happening there. Wow. Have those people trained? Have they set some rigid boundaries in their life for the training, for the diet, the exercise, what they've had to do all of their lives to get to this level of performance where they are today? Absolutely. They've probably had to resist a lot of things in their lives to be at this level of performance and perfection of the gold medals where they are today. I have a friend that is a triathlete, and anytime he's getting ready for a race, I'm always amazed. It's 6 or 8 hours a day that he's training. Triathlete, of course, is the running, the swimming, and the biking. So it's not just one activity, but you've got to have the stamina and the preparation for all of those. Not to mention how frequently he has to eat just to get enough calories in his body to be able to support and sustain that much activity. So it's a full-time job for him when he goes into full training for a triathlon that's coming up. So he sets really rigid boundaries around that, around what he's going to be doing to be able to achieve that goal, So, some of us have fluid and maybe a little more porous boundaries. If it's fun, I'm in if it's fun. I don't know what that might be, but some of us have those. And it doesn't really matter what they are. The question is, where are you on that spectrum? Where are you on that spectrum? And when we know what those boundaries are and how porous or rigid that they are, then we know when they're being violated. Right? We know when they're being violated, either by ourselves or attempted by, it's only by ourselves, right? It would only be by ourselves. Now, for me, I find one of the most difficult boundaries to keep is when someone asks me for a favor, support, or for time. Because I want to give. I want to be there. I want to help. I want to be supportive and active in that. And yet, maybe it's conflicting with something else that's going on. So I always find that time where the opportunity is presented. Tell me, not if you experience this. The opportunity is presented, and your mind immediately goes to, what if I say yes, and all the complications with that, and then immediately it goes to no, and the fear, if I tell them no, they're not going to love me. They're not going to like me. Isn't that a basic fear that we have? It's a basic. But there we stand with the opportunity presented before us, and both of those answers floating in our minds, trying to make a decision. What do we do? We go within, right? We have to go within. We have to trust the wisdom within us to know, is this mine to do? Is this mine to say yes to or not? We have to trust that. But sometimes we feel a sense of obligation, don't we? We feel a sense of obligation. Maybe you've got a friend that is experiencing a struggle that needs some of your time or attention. Maybe you've got an elderly parent that you're helping right now. It can feel burdensome. It can feel inconvenient because, maybe we've had our life rolling along for 20, 30, 40 years, and now it's being interrupted because we have to care for a parent. And that can be a difficult challenge for us. But yet we feel this sense of obligation that we have to do that. And there's other areas that we feel like we have to do things. But I would suggest that we choose. We're still choosing because we always have choice. And that's the key thing to remember, that even when we feel like we don't have a choice, we're always at choice. We just may not like the consequences of that choice, because that might produce other things on the other side. So when we feel like we're in a situation where we're under an obligation to do something, we have to do it. It's not our desire or our passion to do it. And we have that resentment perhaps, or maybe judgment, maybe anger, maybe frustration. I would invite us in that moment to ask, why do I feel like this is an obligation of mine? Why do I feel like I have to do this? Why do I feel like I have to do this? And I think in asking that question, we find the bridge to love. We find the bridge to love. Because anytime we feel like we have to do something or we're obligated to do something, it's because we're feeling a responsibility. It's because it is a parent that needs us. It is a friend that needs us. It's someone that we care or have cared about deeply in our life that needs us in this moment. And there is love there. there is love there. So when we can go back to love and let go of the obligation that we're feeling, the have to that we're feeling, then we can perform that act of service from a place of loving kindness, from compassion, from caring, not from obligation. Not from obligation. I am reading a book right now that is called The Obstacle is the Way. And it's an interesting little book, and the theme of it is that whatever the obstacle or the barrier is, that it is in fact the teacher and the way through the obstacle. Interesting concept, because we normally think, go around it, go through it, go under it, dissolve it, make it go away, turn a different direction, take a different route, do something else. And this idea is that the obstacle itself is the teacher that will teach us the way through it to get to whatever it is barring. So, interesting concept. So what areas of life are you facing with a sense of dread, obligation, rather than passion and desire? If it's something that you really must do, something that you choose that you really must do, find a way to transform it to love. Find a way to transform it to love. Change the perception. Change your thinking, change your life, right? Another powerful question to ask ourselves is, why do we think just because someone has asked that we need to agree, that we need to say yes? Just because somebody asks, do you ever feel that way? Oh gosh, they're asking, I guess I have to say yes. Sometimes. And again, it can be that sense of obligation, can it? And that dilemma, again, the yes and the no and the this and the that, and what am I going to say? We can go right back to blaming that person for asking. Why did you ask me that? Now I have to make a decision. Oh my gosh. This is a no-win for me. You're putting me in a catch-22. Have you ever felt that way? Just don't even ask. Don't ask me. Then I won't have to decide. Then I won't have to decide. Well, I'm going to invite us to think about gratitude instead of blame. Think about gratitude, which is another powerful tool of transformation. You know, I like the work of Esther Hicks and the Abraham work that she does, and one of the things that she talks about is contrast, and how we need contrast in order to choose, in order to establish our preferences. And she says, to understand and experience what you desire, you must understand that which you do not desire, for in order to be able to choose and focus, both must be present and understood. So to know what you want, you have to know what you don't want, right? Now we're pretty good at knowing what we don't want, aren't we? I don't want any more of that. But are we really centered and focused and focusing on what we do want? We've talked about that before. Focus on what we want and the other will fall away. But we like to stay over here and focus on this stuff we don't want and talk about it a lot, don't we? So we need to talk about what we do want, what we do want. So back to the idea of shifting that blame into gratitude. What if, when those decisions come to you, those questions come to you, you start envisioning a white-gloved silver tray with whatever that is being presented to you? This is the universe saying, would you like some? Oh, no thank you. No thank you. Or, absolutely, thank you very much. But if we can view these questions that we're getting, these decisions that we're needing to make, if we can view those as simply the universe coming forward and saying, let's make another choice, let's make another preference, let's define a little more clearly what it is that you're seeking to experience in your life. Oh, you don't like that? Okay, we won't give you more of that, we'll give you more of this. How about this one? How about this? How about this? And what that does is it continues to bring us back into closer alignment with who and what we are, we say we want to see and experience in our life, because we're establishing those preferences, and we're establishing those not only with the universe, but with ourselves and with everyone that we come into contact with. So that's a very wonderful visual to hold when we're on that, oh gosh, what am I going to say, yes or no? Wait, let me tap in, let me feel, what do I need to say here? Oh, it's a no thank you. Next. Now, what else does that do for us besides setting up the gratitude there for the opportunity to make a preference? It also opens the door then for creativity. Because the person that was asking now has to go, ooh, now what am I going to do? I need somebody to help with this. Who could it be? Who could it be? And the universe doesn't like those questions, so it's going to provide an answer. Oh, so-and-so. And then that person gets asked, and wow, they have a sacred yes, and that transforms their life. And your sacred no was critical to that happening. So we have a sacred no within us, that place within us that knows what is right for us and how we are to support the universe and how we are to support each other. It's when we get wound up and caught up in our fear of they're not going to like me anymore if I say no, or our projections of I need to do it because of this but it's not the right reasons. We get caught up in our head as opposed to allowing our heart to speak and tell us what's true, yes or no. Because when we know that, then we're supporting the evolution of the entire planet. We're supporting a world that works for all when we stand confidently in our own truth, speak our own words of wisdom from ourselves, and allow life to unfold through us, because that's how it works. Life unfolds through us. And it's from that knowing place within each one of us. From within each one of us. So allow someone else to be of service. I'm going to allow someone else to have that opportunity, right? And I have asked many of you to be in service to this community, and I so appreciate it. And I know that I've asked several of you, and you've gone, not for me. So I know you know how to do this. I know you know how to do this. So I just invite you to continue to do that. Continue to anchor into the truth of what is yours to do. What is yours to do in this moment? So back to this idea of our emotions and trusting them and knowing what is ours to do. We've all had that time where we've said, yeah, our mouth says yes and our mind's screaming no, right? We do it anyway. Well, Ernest Holmes, our founder and the author of The Science of Mind and a bajillion other books, says probably 75% of all disorders are caused by suppressed emotions. Wow, that's a big number. 75% suppressed emotions. So this is a national public health announcement for you. Stop suppressing your emotions, right? Stop suppressing your emotions. We need to love ourselves enough. Love ourselves enough to be true to ourselves, to speak that sacred no. It's a sacred no. And you don't know what's going to happen after that, do you? Because it's going to go to the next person. And maybe 2 or 3 until it finally gets to the right person at the right time in the right place for the perfect unfoldment through their life. Thank you. So it is part of self-care. It is a spiritual practice that we incorporate within all of our spiritual practices that we do. Spiritual practice, or self-care, it's intentional. It's intentional. And it's those actions that you take every day, not one and done, every day, to care for your physical, mental, emotional health, your mind, body, and soul. You're the caretaker of it. I've seen recently on Facebook that little post about take care of your body. It's the only place you've got to live. It's like, well, duh. But yeah, take care. So self-care, mind, body, and spirit. So what are some ways that we can apply this idea of self-care as a spiritual practice? We are going to look at our practicing the principles this week, and a reminder again, this slide will be up at the end of service. You can take a picture if you want to, carry it with you on your phone all week, and refer back to how you can apply these on your life. Because if we can't apply this stuff, there's no sense being here, right? It's got to work in our lives. So our first principle is Change blame to gratitude. And we talked about that. Thank you for asking. The idea of the tray. Change blame to gratitude. Don't blame the person asking. They're just the messenger. We've all heard that, right? Don't shoot the messenger. They're just the messenger that the universe is using in that moment to help you make a choice, help you establish a preference to become more in alignment with who and what you are seeking to be in your life. That's all it is. Thank you. Gratitude's easy from that perspective, isn't it? It's easy from that perspective. Second point is to find love instead of obligation. When you feel that sense of have to, that burden, that inconvenience of I have to do it, look for why, find the love, let that be that which bubbles up inside of you. If it's something that you take on as a burden with resistance, I'm going to suggest that whatever that might be, write a check, hire somebody instead. Because your resentment is bringing poison to the situation. It's bringing poison to the situation, to yourself and to the other person. It's all consciousness, right? So when we come in, even with the hidden resentment, we're bringing poison to that situation. Find the love or find somebody else to do it. It's really important. And finally, by setting and respecting the healthy boundaries that we have set for our life, we are sending a clear message, not only to our soul, our subconscious, the universe, but the world, everyone around us knows this is who I am, this is what I stand for. I honor my own boundaries and values that I have set for myself. I respect myself. I love myself. I'm worthy. I'm worth it. That's the message that we're sending all around when we do that. My preferences matter and I am worth it. It's like the old L'Oreal commercial, because I'm worth it, right? You are. Each and every one of you is worth it. You are worth it and worthy. So remember, the self-care is a spiritual practice and it requires you choosing to do it. Just like all of our spiritual practices, we have to choose to do them, don't we? And then we have to intentionally make space in our life for them. And then we have to schedule it and honor it. Name and claim the time. Name and claim the time. And I promise you that with a bit of spiritual practice, a bit of self-care this week, you will have more joy, more rest, and better soul health. Better soul health. So I want to close this out today with a quote by Anne Lamott. I don't know if you've read any of her things. She's amazing. But I love it. She says, "No is a complete sentence." So I'd invite you to join me now in an affirmative prayer as we practice some intentional self-care through our affirmative prayer this morning. Please join me as we go within and recognize